All right. Oh. All right. I hope everybody's having a good day, man. Welcome to the channel. If anyone's new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Support the channel by super chatting. I do have a super chat go up of 10 super chats, $10 and above. We're going to be here for a while. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join the See Me Now family. Hopefully that lighting's a bit better. All right. Let's get some of this stuff pulled up quick. Go over some of this Candace stuff. I got some stuff on Twitter or X I want to pull up here. My dog sounds funny. All right, man. Make sure you guys double tap the screen, show some love and support, help propel us into the algorithm. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. All right, we're gonna start off with some news. Breaking news: at least 3 ships attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. Assuming they're U.S. ships. Let's get this onto the screen here. Is everything good? Make this a bit bigger. Oh, come on, fuck. All right. Hopefully that's good enough here. Pull it over to the side a bit more. All right, whatever. Let's check it out. corruption. Good morning, Stacy. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure you guys like the stream. This stuff. This stuff. It looks like my webcam is. Things are lagging today. What the hell? Hold on one second. Let's check out my webcam here. Hopefully that works a little bit better. You guys let me know how it is. Everybody's feeling all right. Still trying to get my younger daughter to kind of come along and, you know, be a little bit better. I'm gonna keep her out of school probably tomorrow and then maybe the next day after that, just to let her have another couple of days at home and whatnot. But I'm still kind of congested. But my younger daughter, or my oldest daughter, I took her to a clinic because I thought she got a secondary ear infection too, like my younger one did. But she's doing all right, so they're both, we're getting there. Is my shit not working here? What is going on? There, is that better?
Was tweeting about this on Truth Social, talking about how much money they're losing. They're losing $500 million a day with the strait being closed. So we want to dismantle the nuclear program in Iran. Until they give us that enriched uranium and agree to dismantle, then we'll continue to keep that strait closed, and they will continue to lose money, and we will bleed them dry, and we'll continue that economic pressure. But Lawrence, the problem is as Brian was mentioning with the negotiations, Iran can't communicate, first of all, so they have to go back and forth and try to find their supreme leader without being caught and without being traced.
Handwritten notes.
Yeah, the senior leader is nowhere to be seen. And number three, there's that power struggle between the Iranian parliament speaker, Gilibov, and the IRG. He wants diplomacy and negotiations mixed with military strength. And apparently the IRCG is opposed to talks completely, Lawrence.
Yeah, so the regime is in total chaos. They have no leadership right now. No one is really in control. It looks like the supreme leader is still wounded, battered. They can't communicate by cell phones because the Israelis and the Mossad take over that. The pagers just don't work for them as well. They're pretty much down to carrier pigeons. They can't use boats. They can't.
I don't know why we're so jumpy today. I apologize. Make sure you guys like the stream, man. Show some love and support. Help propel me into the algorithm. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, show some love. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Like, why it's being so jumpy. I'm trying take that off real quick.
Use drones to communicate. Hey, and so what you have now is that the people with the guns now are controlling the operation. Now the president wants to have this debate and allow them to get their act together. It looks like
what is going on here, y'all? My apologies. I don't know why it's being so laggy today.
Maddie, meanwhile, to another alert. At least 3 cargo ships have been hit by Iranian gunfires in those small little fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and it happened this.
Israelis and the Mossadists take over that. The pagers just don't work for them as well. They're pretty much down to carrier pigeons. They can't use boats. They can't use drones to communicate. Hey, and so what you have now is that the people with the guns now are controlling the operation. Now the president wants to have this debate and allow them to get their act together. It looks like the Pakistanians are trying to convince the political leadership as well as the military leadership to get on the same page.
Bro,
but at some point, the president is going to lose his patience. And I think we're going to be right back to the battlefield, guys.
How inappropriate was Senator Chris Murphy yesterday? First off, you know about his comments in Barcelona when he went off the map, addressing a bunch of socialists, ripping our country, saying we're run by a dictator. Governor Waltz, even more embarrassing, really to himself. He just doesn't realize it. Ripping our country, saying the most horrific things. Saying,
my bad, guys. We're gonna retry all this shit. This is not going good here. We will go to YouTube on here. See how this works here. I gotta black out my screen quick. It's always something. My apologies. My apologies. We're getting there though, y'all. Alright, we're signed in. Let's get this shit back on the road, huh? Let's see if Safari's any better here. We can go to a different video. Iran seizes 2 vessels.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps.
All right, this should be better, y'all. Hopefully this is better for y'all. To me, this is like payback for us taking that oil tanker. Yesterday, or the news was yesterday we take an oil tanker, and now the news is today that Iran seized 2 ships.
These vessels have been transferred to the territorial waters of the Islamic Republic of Iran for inspection of their cargo and documents. The IRGC Navy once again emphasized that any action aimed at disrupting the implementation of the laws announced by the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding transit in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as activities contrary to safe passage in this strategic waterway, will be continuously monitored by the IRGC Navy, and violators will face decisive and lawful action.
Meanwhile, the ceasefire has been extended despite stalled efforts to reach a peace deal between the U.S. and Iran. President Donald Trump says Pakistan asked the U.S. to hold off on attacking Iran so Iranian leaders can submit a unified proposal. Now, Iran's ambassador to the UN says talks will resume as soon as the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports ends. But Washington has said the naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz will continue until a peace deal is done. Now, we've got correspondents at the White House, in Islamabad, in Dubai, and in Tehran. We're going to start with Ali Hashim in the Iranian capital. So, Ali, the ceasefire is extended, but Iran seizes 2 ships. What are the messages coming from Iran?
Well, the ceasefire is one thing for the Iranians, and the blockade is another. And they've vowed yesterday that they are going to continue and resume the work on defending the strait, the closure of the strait, as they're doing from their own side, and the other side trying to confront the blockade. And given the fact that today's incident took place.
Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Make sure you guys hit the like button, man. Show some love and support. Join the See Me Now family. We're so close to hitting 11K subs, man. Hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 20K subs. Most importantly, 100. Show some love and support, man, by hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button with notification bell. You guys know what to do, man. Welcome in.
It's clear that this is part of the new status quo in the seas surrounding the Gulf and the Arab region, tit for tat. That will, of course, I mean, this is coming just after days from the United States seizing of an Iranian ship. So now we're seeing the Iranians seizing another 2 ships. So this is going to continue as far as the blockade is there and as far as the Strait of Hormuz is.
To Rain King Rabbit, fuck MAGA, bro. It's America first, bro. What is MAGA anymore? What is MAGA anymore, bro? It's about being America first, bro. Caring for America first.
It's closed also.
Ali, thanks a lot. We're going to bring in Mike Hanna at the White House. So Donald Trump, Mike, saying that the U.S. is going to still blockade the Strait of Hormuz. It's now waiting for Iran to come back with what's been described as a unified response. What are you hearing from the White House?
Well, President Trump made clear that he believes the blockade is still an important piece of leverage for him. He did so in a Truth Social statement in the course of yesterday evening. He says Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day. He wrote, they only say they want it closed because I have it totally blockaded. So they merely want to save face. Now, a few days ago, President Trump was saying that the Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter because the U.S. doesn't rely on it for oil. However, now it's obviously a central part of his policy and a central part of attempting to show that the U.S. has not backed down in terms of extending this particular ceasefire. There's something that is very important for President Trump to continue to appear to show strength in the face of what is amounting to Iranian defiance of his wishes to get the talks going again. Also a problem for the Trump administration, several sources are saying, is the fact that they're not quite clear who they are talking with in Iran, who are the decision makers. The main negotiator was assassinated by the Israelis, Ali Larijani.
Of course he was. Of course he was.
Leader, the former one, was assassinated in the early part of the war. Now the U.S. government appears to be left with the Islamic Republican Guard Corps to negotiate with, notoriously hardline, and the previous leaders who have been killed were in fact guardrails against the complete power of the ICRG.
Okay, let's go back to Ali Hashim, who's still in Tehran for us, of course. So Donald Trump had previously said that the U.S. was negotiating with people that he described as reasonable, but we understand now he's saying it's because part of the problem is that Iran's leadership is fractured. Do we have any indication who is providing the responses to the U.S. right now?
Well, you know, when you are in Tehran, the view is different, especially when you are watching how the system is working in Tehran. It's completely different from what is being said. I mean, the issue is that there is a system, there is a leadership, there are institutions, there is a foreign ministry. These are all part of the decision-making cycle in Iran. And nothing has changed when it comes to how things work in this. There's a workflow. Now, the killing of the Supreme Leader, the killing of the Supreme National Security Council Secretary, other people who are in charge, wasn't left without being replaced. So there's no vacuum. And when there's no vacuum, the workflow continues as it used to be. However, there's something, yes, different now in Iran, is that the team surrounding the Supreme Leader is very harmonized. Actually, it's his own team for the past 15 years. And now, after they've worked in the shadows for all that time, now they are in charge. So we see Mohammed Baqir Dhul Qadr being the Supreme National Security Council. The commanders in the IRGC.
Shout out Jerusalem.
For example, Ahmed Wahidi or Aziz Ja'fari or his assistant Hussein Ta'ib or Mohammed Baqir Qaliba. These are all people who were the men around the new Supreme Leader when he wasn't the Supreme Leader. So the decision making is smooth among them, and it's supposed that the Supreme National Security Council and the Foreign Ministry are the ones conveying the answers. So other than that, there are no signs that there is a fractured leadership here in Tehran.
Ali Hashem, live for us there in Tehran. Thanks, Ali. We're going to go back to Mike Hanna at the White House. Mike, just before we do, I just want to point out our viewers to the top right-hand corner of the screen there. That is the current price of Brent crude at the moment. It's sitting over $100 a barrel. It's been moving between 10 and it was up to about 19 at one point. You can see the figure ticking up and down there. This is an indication, of course, the kind of level of uncertainty that the world has with regard to, even though we have a ceasefire extension, there is speculation that talks may be carrying on, and nevertheless there is this uncertainty which is being reflected, at least in part, by the energy prices. Now, in terms of domestic politics, how long do you think Donald Trump can continue all of this? What are analysts telling you from the States?
Well, the oil price is certainly felt by Americans at the gas stations, but it goes far further than that. A diesel plays an important part in the transportation of everyday goods, and the price of those goods are rising incrementally as this war continues. It's a deeply unpopular war within the United States, and the polls indicate.
Welcome in, Brian. Welcome back. Much love to everybody, man, that's coming in. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button with notification bell. Most importantly, though, make sure you guys like the stream, man. Let's try and get the likes up. Let's get in the algorithm today. I'm going to be on for a while. Say what's up. Join the family, man. We're on the road to 100K subs. Most importantly, we're on the road to 20K. We're getting there, man. We're this close to 11K, man. So hit that sub button.
That President Trump's own personal standing is the lowest it has ever been, and probably the lowest of any president. One poll puts him at 30% favorable rate. So it is having a dramatic political impact on the United States and on the Trump administration. But further than that, there are, of course, midterm elections in November. President Trump has been looking forward to that. He has been on his campaign trail already, even during this conflict. And this could have a massive and dramatic effect at those November voting to the detriment of President Trump and his Republican Party. So he wants out of here. Very clearly, he has extended the ceasefire because he does not want to go back to war again, because that would lead to a renewing of the war and an extension of it. So he is looking for an off-ramp. All indicators, all analysts believe that this is the case, and he wants one. But how is he going to get it? Well, that is the question, because none of those around him, he spent the day sitting with his National Security Council yesterday, none of those around him appear to be certain as to what course he should take. They are leaving it up to him. They did not know going into that meeting yesterday what President Trump was going to do at the end of it, whether he was going to go to war again or declare an extension of the ceasefire. So it's a very, very shadowy, shady, difficult situation, and the popular effect is deeply damaging to the Trump administration.
It's Mike Hanna at the White House. Mike, thanks very much indeed.
Well, I'm assuming Bibi was on the phone too, right?
Hormuz remained under Iran, and the nuclear issue.
Watch Al Jazeera. I also want to go over a clip of Ilhan Omar being questioned, and matter of fact, let's just go over it now. At the end of the day, bro, when I show you guys this, remember, this is a congresswoman, right? This is a congresswoman who is speaking to people like this, who are questioning where our tax dollars are going. So make sure you go follow me on Twitter at See Me Now. But this is a congresswoman that we have in our country, and it's just despicable. So let's go here. Go follow me on Twitter, See Me Now. So the first one I want to show is this one. This is just insane.
The last time I spoke to you, you said...
Now, mind you, this right here is a congresswoman in our own country being questioned about our tax dollars. And this is what she has to say.
Congresswoman Omar, the last time I spoke to you, you said that I was stupid for asking you about your financial disclosure, but there's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain that? How did you make such a big mistake on it?
Absolutely, you're stupid for asking me anything.
I am?
Yes.
Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big
I have
mistake?
explained to the American people.
What's the explanation?
I have given them the explanation.
Do you want to tell our viewers? Because
I don't want to tell you jack shit.
Listen how she's talking, man.
Oh. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
And that smile, dude, like this smile right here is that smile of someone you know is fake for the camera, but outside the camera, they're fucking evil, right? All eyes on me. Thank you for the subscription. God bless you. I like the name. But yeah, I mean, this is just crazy, bro. Congresswoman in our own country is saying, I don't need to tell you jack shit over what's going on with our money and what she's doing with our money, right? May as well go over the fact that clavicular is being blessed by a rabbi right here.
How are you?
There's a John Bravo did a good video on clavicular explaining how he got this $5 million club, and it's because he's partnering with a Israeli mafia member to open it, and now he's really around all these rabbis and all this other shit, and so he's gonna be propelled to the top because of that, right? I mean, just how much more blatant can you get, right? We can watch this.
Pirates who ransacked Minnesota.
Somebody needs to give this camera guy a massive raise right now.
That's the kind of money you're talking about. We'll balance our budget.
I agree. Ilhan Omar needs to go to jail. 100%.
The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing games. Delilah.
I think that
Yeah, I just think Ilhan Omar needs to go to jail, bro. Sorry, it just needs to happen. And to the person that said she don't have to say nothing to a reporter, if you're over here and people are asking you about the fucking tax money that you're wasting or doing whatever with, I'm pretty sure that every time you're asked, you should probably answer. Because there's hundreds of millions of Americans paying taxes and they're fucking it off. So I'm pretty sure it's a question you should probably want to answer, right?
It's still strangling many of their economies. And so I'm not sure how satisfied they would be even if there was a deal.
Welcome in, Hector.
General, I want to follow up on that because in terms of the ballistic missiles, which is
make sure you guys like the stream, man. Get those likes up, show some love and support. Get the algorithm going. Appreciate y'all for getting the likes up a little bit, but keep liking, keep showing some support, keep subscribing. We're almost to 11K subs, man. We're trying to hit 20.
This is something that most of the Gulf countries,
100% both sides are corrupt.
Were affected by. We had it here, the drones as well, Iran's drone capability. We're getting assurances from Donald Trump, from the White House, that so much of Iran's capability has been destroyed, and yet it appears it is still capable of carrying out attacks to some degree. Is there some way that the U.S. will be able to give a guarantee, do you think, to the Gulf nations that it either had control over Iran's ballistic missile capability or it had devastated it to such a degree that Iran would not be able to rebuild it?
Well, certainly not the latter, because that's the Israeli expression, mowing the grass.
Brian, you're a subscriber and you've been here for a while, and I respect you, brother, but I say what I say. If people want to take my words for how they want to interpret it, that's their own fucking problem. I really don't care. All these people in the government right now are just disappointing, one by one after another, one story after another. I don't know how else you want me to say it, bro. It is what it is. All of them need to we need to just reset it all, in my opinion. I was just talking about this morning, and I'm not going to get into it because it's a lot of shit I can say, but if you guys take my words and interpret it in a personal way, that's on you guys. That's not on me. I'm here to commentate. I'm here to give my opinion. If you don't like it, you don't have to be here.
We did a pretty good job mowing the grass of the missiles and the drones. and to some extent the nuclear
If you're a congresswoman in this country talking to a reporter like that who's asking about what's happening with tax dollars, you shouldn't be a congresswoman. When you're in a position like that, you need to hold yourself to a standard in a way to not sound like a complete narcissistic piece of crap.
Ability last June.
Appreciate you, Jersey Gems. God bless you.
All easily replaced.
Welcome to the
we
family.
have non-allies in this world that are more than happy to replace the missiles, the missile technology, the missile components, the drones. So without a diplomatic agreement that was verifiable at any time, I don't think we could ever guarantee that they wouldn't be able to rebuild that capability. That would take a good negotiation. I don't know if we can achieve, because Danya is exactly right. We think this is all about the nuclear weapons, as does Israel. But it's very interesting that any time the negotiations come up, the Iranians are quick to say, yes, we'll talk about the nukes. No, we won't talk about the ballistic missiles. No, we won't talk about our support for liberation movements.
General Mark Hammett, I appreciate it, Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs one time, and also Daniel Thaffer, thank you very much indeed, Executive Director of the Gulf International Forum. Very grateful to you both. Thank you very much indeed. Donald Trump has accused China of secretly assisting Iran. That's after U.S. forces intercepted a ship carrying what he described as a gift from Beijing. China denies the accusation and insists it remains neutral. But the spat could strain ties ahead of Trump's planned visit. Katrina Yu reports from Beijing.
In one of the most serious accusations yet, President Donald Trump says the U.S. intercepted a ship headed for Iran, carrying what he described as a gift from China. He didn't say what was on board, but told American media it was something not very nice.
I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship, and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right?
China has denied the allegation.
To my knowledge, this is a foreign-flagged container ship. China opposes any malicious links and hype.
In recent days, Beijing has intensified diplomatic efforts to end the war, holding talks with leaders from the Middle East and Europe. It's criticized the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, calling it a dangerous escalation. Before the conflict, about half of China's crude imports were shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, 13% from Iran. China was the biggest buyer of Iranian oil.
Yeah, hey man, we've been live for 34 minutes, man. Let's get those likes up. We're only at 11 likes. Let's get an algorithm. Keep commenting, keep liking, keep showing support. Most importantly, hit the subscribe button with notification bell. Join the See Me Now family. We're on the road to 20K subs. Most importantly, 100K. We're going to get that silver plaque by the end of the year, man. Show some love and support.
Those supplies, up to 1.3 million barrels per day, are now disrupted. That stake has raised questions, particularly in the U.S., about how neutral Beijing really is. In a social media post, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, said the seized ship was linked to chemical shipments for missiles, and went on, another reminder that China is helping prop up Iran's regime. China's embassy in Washington rejected the accusation, saying it handles military exports prudently and strictly controls dual-use goods.
Chinese officials have been pushing for peace talks and say they support Pakistan's mediation efforts, but they've also been careful to downplay their influence over Iran, saying China is not party to this conflict. Trump's comments about the so-called gift cast a shadow over his planned visit here next month, complicating efforts to stabilize a volatile relationship. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
An Israeli drone strike in Lebanon's Bekaa region has killed one person and injured two others. The military says it was responding to Tuesday's attack by Hezbollah on northern Israel. The Iranian-aligned group says it fired the rockets in response to Israeli violations of a 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon, which began last week. Lebanon's Speaker of Parliament, Nabi Berri, has condemned Israel's ongoing occupation of Lebanese land. He's also rejecting the so-called...
Yo, Brian, you need to stop being so concerned about racism. You need to be more concerned about what's going on legitimately. I don't give a fuck about racism, bro. Like, to me, like, that's like so at this point out of the question, or out of, you know, it's not even relevant. What do you mean? I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, or, you know, Somalian. you're committing fraud, or if you're a congressperson talking to a citizen that's just questioning what's going on with our tax dollars or anything else, and you act like that, you're not fit for the job, homie.
Called Israeli Yellow Line, which outlines a buffer zone in the south. This raised fears that Israel is preparing for a long-term occupation, similar to what the army imposed in Gaza. Zena Khoda reports from southern Lebanon.
The only sound we can hear is the buzz of an Israeli drone. The streets are empty. There's still a sense of insecurity. A temporary ceasefire came into force last week after 46 days of conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. But there have been multiple violations.
We are in Faroum, and it is among the villages that lie just north of the so-called Yellow Line that the Israeli military imposed. It is calling it a new security border.
The Israeli military's map shows a zone several kilometers deep into Lebanon, from which it says it wants free of Hezbollah and weapons.
We can't drive any further. It's dangerous.
So basically, they're just trying to take more land, right?
Because according to that map, beyond this point falls within the Yellow Line zone. Israeli troops are a few kilometers from here, mainly in border villages.
You don't understand here, bro. Like, if you're concerned about racism, you're like way behind on knowledge, okay? When I'm talking about racism, I'm talking about racism has no room in the conversation we're having about her being a congressperson. How is me saying the way she's talking to a reporter about her fraud or whatever's going on with her, saying she doesn't want to tell her, in her own words, jack shit, that's wrong. How is that racist? You guys just like to try and find any way and nitpick any little thing to find something wrong with what I say. Nothing about that is racist. Race has no room in any of the conversation we're having here when it comes to government and what these people are doing in the government. We all bleed the same. We all die the same, homie. Black, white, Mexican, Chinese, Asian, I don't give a shit, bro. I don't see race. I see bullshit. And that's what I call out.
Israel asserts control by fire.
This is different to during Israel's 18-year
Make sure you guys double tap the screen, man. Show some love and support.
Occupation of southern Lebanon that ended in 2000. Then, the Israeli army had positions and carried out patrols with local allies, and people lived there. Now, Israel is leveling villages where Shia Muslims live and is not allowing anyone back, declaring at least 50 towns no-go zones. For the Israeli army, it may be the only way to hold ground, because during weeks of fighting, Hezbollah prevented invading troops from establishing permanent positions.
Hezbollah relied on guerrilla-style tactics that it used in the 1980s and 90s. Those near-daily attacks and ambushes eventually led to Israel's withdrawal. Decades later, the group is pledging to break any military boundary Israel tries to impose.
Abu Ali shows us where the Israeli military was stationed during that occupation. At the time, he returned to his village, thinking the presence of the Lebanese army nearby would keep him safe.
I was shot in my leg while I was planting onions. Why? They don't want us here. But this is our land, and we won't leave.
By Israel's own admission, Hezbollah is still south of the Yellow Line. It said soldiers engaged with the fighters in recent days. Israel has created a boundary, but this is still contested territory. Zana Khuder, Al Jazeera.
It's all part of the Greater Israel Project, guys.
Southern Lebanon.
The Israeli military has removed 2 soldiers from duty and sentenced them to 30 days in detention for destroying a statue of Jesus Christ in southern Lebanon. But as Nida Ibrahim reports, Israeli forces have a...
Yeah, that's just for PR, bro. They're destroying holy sites all over the fucking place, bro. Like, oh, 30 days in detention. Blah, blah, blah. They've been doing it, bro. It's because people are raising a stink about it. They're doing it for PR.
History of attacks on religious sites.
An Israeli soldier who destroyed a statue of Jesus.
Because you see this picture right here? You see this? This is how Israel thinks of our Lord and Savior, guys. If you're Christian, if you're Catholic, this is what they think. That's why there is no Judeo-Christian values. This is what they think. Okay, I'm hitting them in the face with a sledgehammer. Get real, man. But Israel does not represent all Jews, and even they will tell you that.
Pieces with a sledgehammer and another who photographed the incident have been removed from combat duty and sentenced to 30 days in military detention. Another 6 soldiers who stood by and watched may be reprimanded. The Israeli army was quick to announce the punishment after an uproar over what happened in Debil village in southern Lebanon. In a post on social media, it says a replacement cross has already been installed.
Here come the bots.
But if we look at the picture, the apology will start to look disingenuous. The new cross is Orthodox, and Debil is Maronite Catholic, one of 55 southern Lebanese villages still under Israel's military occupation of the area. Israeli officials were quick to condemn the vandalism, framing it as an isolated incident.
Shall prevail.
Much international support for Israel comes from Christian leaders and communities, especially in the United States. But Israel's army has a history of targeting holy sites and violating international law.
Yep.
During its genocide in Gaza, Israel bombarded hundreds of mosques and all 3 of its churches. Among them, one of the oldest churches in the world. No one was charged, no one detained. In many cases, the military and members of the public celebrated.
Make sure you guys like the stream, man. Show some love and support. Let's get them likes up, bro.
These people are cheering in support of 5 Israeli soldiers charged with sexually abusing a Palestinian held in an Israeli military detention facility. The charges were later dropped, even though the assault was captured on video. And the soldiers were allowed to return to active service. When it comes to the Israeli army, it's rarely about the offense. It's about the documentation, and even more precisely, the PR nightmare. Many officials around the world condemned the desecration of the cross. But its attacks against Palestinians do not often spark that level of outrage, even when proof exists. In Israel, it seems you can escape prosecution for bombing a church, committing a war crime, destroying private property, or assaulting a detainee on camera.
Welcome in, Skip.
But film yourself smashing a cross, and it would appear you will be held accountable. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera, occupied West Bank, Palestine.
The European Union is stepping up measures to ease the impact of rising energy costs caused by the war in the Middle East. It's planning to cut tax on electricity and coordinate refills of gas storage facilities across the bloc over the summer. It's also going to introduce temporary state aid rules so that countries can better protect consumers and businesses from high energy prices. Despite the measures, the EU's energy chief says gas prices could remain high for years, even if the war ends soon.
This is not a short-term, small increase in prices. This is a crisis that is probably as serious as the 1973 and the 2022 crisis combined. And this means that we are looking into some very difficult months or maybe even years, depending, of course, on the development in the Middle East. But even in a best-case scenario, it's still bad.
Energy price spikes and supply disruptions are hitting European aviation, with pressure mounting on several airlines. Germany's Lufthansa has announced it's scrapping 20,000 short-haul flights over the next 6 months. It says soaring fuel costs have made many routes unprofitable. Jet fuel prices have doubled since the start of the war. Other European airlines have also cut flights or raised ticket prices. Europe is the largest consumer of jet fuel shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, accounting for more than 40% of its imports. The surge in energy prices will be high on the agenda at the European Union summit in Cyprus on Thursday. The country currently holds the EU presidency. The bloc is looking to expand renewable energy options. From Cyprus, Rory Challens has this report.
It's probably no surprise to anyone that this is exactly the sort of thing the European Union wants to see more of. I'm at a wind farm in Cyprus. For years, the EU has been trying to wean this continent off fossil fuels, replacing them with low-carbon options. Now, especially, The European Commission's new proposals are designed to help countries cope with the energy crisis from Iran's war. But they're not going big guns, though. No windfall taxes or price caps like after Russia invaded Ukraine. What they're doing is allowing countries to drop tax rates on energy by changing Europe's minimum rate rules, and also changing the balance so that electricity is always taxed lower than fossil fuels. Plus, there'll be emergency guidance on how to deal with any jet fuel shortages. So why nothing more flashy? Well, there is a limit to how much Brussels can actually do. It's national governments that control many of the crisis levers, but it's a strategic calculation
we'll
too.
We'll come back to Al Jazeera. I'm not trying to hear about all that shit.
Also have a $37 trillion national debt.
Here's fucking Bernie Sanders.
Bottom line, the American people, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or independents, conservatives, moderates, or progressives, want to make certain that their tax dollars are spent responsibly. And in strong and growing numbers, they do not want us to continue spending billions of their taxpayer dollars in support of the illegal, horrific, and expansionist war policies of the Netanyahu government in Israel. Since October 7th, 2023, the United States has provided over $21 billion in military aid to Israel. And today we are saying loudly and clearly, enough is enough. Mr. President, we all know that on October 7th, 2023, Hamas, a terrorist organization, attacked Israel. They killed more than 1,200 innocent men, women, and children, and took hundreds of hostages. I believe that there is no disagreement in this chamber that, like any other country on earth, Israel had the absolute right to respond to that barbaric Hamas attack.
So you're telling me Israel had the right to take soldiers away from the entrance that they came in, allow it to happen, and then use it as a reason to hit Palestine like they did? We all know what happened. So sometimes when I hear these speeches, I'm just like, wow.
But Israel did not have the right, out of a population of 2.2 million, to kill more than 72,000 Palestinians in Gaza and wound over 170,000. That is more than 10% of the population.
If you don't even know, like, it's way more. It's way more. There's still bodies everywhere.
If that happened here in America, that would be over 30 million Americans dead or wounded. And in Gaza, a strong majority of the dead and wounded are women, children, and the elderly. And by the way, that number is likely an underestimate as to the tragedy, as bodies are literally being pulled out of the rubble every single.
Sorry if you guys hear me sniffing, man. I had RSV this last week. It kicked my butt and my kid's butt, so I'm trying to get a hold of myself, and I'm still congested, so my bad. Trying not to, but I have to sometimes. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, everybody that's new. I love you guys. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 20K subs. We're about to hit 11K. So help your boy hit 11K subs by subscribing, hit the notification bell, and double tap the screen. Show some love and support. I truly do appreciate you guys being here. I hope you guys are having a good week, and God bless you guys.
And damage or destroy over 90% of the housing units in Gaza. Over 90% damaged or destroyed, resulting in the vast majority of the population there now sleeping in tents. That is where they are today. Israel did not have the right to bomb over 90% of the hospitals in Gaza, and killed 1,700 healthcare workers. And Mr. President, Israel did not have the right to impose a blockade which prevented food, water, and medicine from entering Gaza, resulting in thousands of Palestinians being diagnosed with malnutrition and hundreds actually starving to death. But, Mr. President, today we are not just talking about Gaza. In the West Bank, in direct violation of international law that protects Palestinian territory, Israeli soldiers and settlers since October 2023 have killed over 1,000 Palestinians, including 233 children. During that period, Mr. President, they have demolished more than 6,000 Palestinian homes and established more than 200 new illegal settlements and outposts in Palestinian territory. And let us be clear, because I think there is some confusion about this. These actions are not just the results of some extremists, out-of-control settlers who are just doing whatever they want. Those actions are consistent with Israeli government policy. Netanyahu's security cabinet has approved the most sweeping changes to the West Bank's legal status since 1967, removing nearly all constraints on settlement expansion. Netanyahu himself declared,
I'm going to let this play. I'm going to go fill my coffee. I'll be right back.
This is Netanyahu, quote, "There will never be a Palestinian state," end quote. And I say that to some people here who still say, well, we're in favor of a two-state solution. That is not Mr. Netanyahu's position. Quote, he said, "There will never be a Palestinian state." His finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, bragged that new settlement construction in the West Bank would bury, that's his word, bury the idea of a Palestinian state. But, Mr. President, it is not just Gaza and the West Bank. We now know that Netanyahu convinced President Trump to start an unprovoked and unconstitutional war on Iran. For 40 years, Netanyahu has wanted the United States to participate with Israel in a war against Iran, and finally, after 40 years of effort, he finally found in Trump a president willing to go along. He couldn't get Democratic presidents in the past, couldn't get Republican presidents in the
Well, how many hundreds of millions of dollars did Trump get?
past. In Trump, he finally found a president willing to go along. This war in violation of international law has resulted already in the deaths of thousands of civilians, including hundreds of children in Iran and Lebanon, including 26 Israeli civilians who are now
Make sure you guys double tap that screen, man. Get those likes up. Show some love and support, man.
dead, and 13 American soldiers who have lost their lives so far in this conflict. Mr. President, all over the world, certainly including the United States, hundreds of millions of innocent people are suffering the economic consequences of this war, with higher prices and growing scarcity of basic goods. I believe that in Vermont now, the price of gas, regular gas, is about $4 a gallon. Parts of the
Dude, in one of the stores here, a box of fucking Cheerios, and not even like a big box, is $10. That's crazy. I remember when it was like $3. Okay, shit's hitting the fan. All right.
country has not only killed more than 2,000 people, but has resulted in Israel occupying 14% of Lebanese territory. Let me repeat that. The war in Lebanon has not only killed more than 2,000 people, but has resulted in Israel occupying 14% of Lebanese territory. Mr. President, the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, has announced...
You know, because if you think about it, it's different. Like, it's a different scenario, but it's kind of the same in a way. You know, Israel's trying to do what America did. They're not going to take the whole continent, but they're trying to expand their country so they can have a bigger Israel, right? It's been so long since anyone's tried to do that. This is just wild.
That all Lebanese border villages will be demolished. Will be demolished. His exact words, following, quote, the model in Gaza. They're going to demolish border villages. Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, has warned that Dayaya, a suburb of South Beirut, quote, will look like Khan Yunis, end quote, a city in Gaza that Israel reduced to rubble. In other words, what they did in Gaza is now what they intend to do in parts of Lebanon. And these, Mr. President, are not threats, they are promises. For all of the reasons that I have given, and more, and you're going to hear more from some of my colleagues in a few moments, support for Israel in this country has plummeted. Today, according to a recent Pew poll, 80% of Democrats now have an unfavorable opinion of Israel, and 41% of Republicans share that view. And the numbers in all parties among young people are even higher. Young people, whether they are young Democrats, progressives, conservatives, do not want us to continue to fund the horrific war policies of Netanyahu. A recent Quinnipiac poll also found that 60%, including 3/4 of Democrats, 2/3 of independents, and 37% of Republicans, I say that to my Republican colleagues, 37% of Republicans do not want the U.S. sending more military aid to Israel. And that is why, Mr. President, I am offering today 2 joint resolutions of disapproval, the only formal mechanism Congress has to block an arms sale. The first resolution would block the sale of $151 million in 1,000-pound bombs.
That's pennies.
The second would block $295 million in bulldozers, the machines used to demolish homes in the West Bank and Gaza, and make a Palestinian state physically impossible. Mr. President, the time is long overdue for members of the U.S. Senate to start listening to the American people and not to AIPAC. The time is now for us to end all U.S. military aid to the extremist Netanyahu.
If you want to go that far and call Netanyahu an extremist and say you want to end aid, why don't you say we need to end AIPAC as well? That's not coming up. You're on some bullshit. Because $150 million in military aid is nothing compared to what we give them.
Transfer of 12,000 1,000-pound bombs and 132 armored...
Man, I bet you this is one of those lives that just skip like that too, damn it. You can't even change what it is on here.
Bulldozers, valued at more than $446 million.
You can't rewind it. That's wild. Wild.
Sticking with us, the fragile truce between Iran and the United States is extended indefinitely for now, but attacks have been reported in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. naval blockade on Iranian-linked ships also continues. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
Tracking software shows 2 ships seized by Iran near the Iranian coastline in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says one of the ships is connected to Israel and claims both were trying to leave the strait without its authorization. It also says it attacked and disabled a 3rd ship. The seizures come just hours after President Trump announced he was extending the ceasefire with Iran. President Trump cited fractures.
We're going to go watch a little bit more of this President Trump, Iran, bullcrap. Then we're going to get into the David case
in Iran's government and said he'll give them more time to submit a unified proposal. International relations professor Eric Loeb says there's a combination of moderates and hardliners.
You have a plethora of individuals and institutions in Iran that are part of the decision-making process, starting with the supreme leader, the president, the parliament, and different advisory bodies around those individuals and institutions.
There's no word yet on when the U.S. delegation could travel for another round of in-person talks after the vice president's trip to Islamabad was put on hold Tuesday.
Pakistan's prime minister met with the Iranian ambassador Wednesday. He later praised President Trump for giving more time for the talks. On the ground in Tehran, some residents say they stayed awake all night to see if the war would continue and describe a feeling of uncertainty. One citizen said the way things currently are, one doesn't know what to do. Others are calling for their country to stand firm.
Iran's foreign...
This is exactly what I said yesterday, and people try and call me stupid and stuff. It's like, dude, they're all, the IRGC is split up in all these groups. There may be some people who are spokespersons for Iran, but at the end of the day, you guys, they are going to have so much infighting on if they're going to come to a conclusion or not. Because there's going to be a bunch of them that are like, dude, look at what they've done to all the other Muslim countries around us, and they're trying to do it to us now. We're only putting off the inevitable. There's going to be some that don't want to do it. There's going to be some that do, period. All right, so now we're going to get into the David case. I haven't been following, as you guys know, I've been sick the past week, so we're going to get into this David case and kind of go over the details so we're all caught up. And when the videos come out soon, you guys can kind of be educated to the people that watch me that really don't, see everything. I'm not just a political guy. I don't like to I have kids, so I focus on politics because this is what is really going to make the world my kids live in the future. So politics is kind of just on my mind a lot, so we go over it on the stream. But at the end of the day, I go over everything. I like going over what's going on in the music industry, what's going on everywhere. So, and I haven't even seen anything about the Nancy Guthrie case soon, or at all. But like I said before when it first started, that I felt like something was up, and so we're gonna have to catch up on that too. But if anyone knows something in the chat, let me know. But I kind of looked up a little bit. They got a suspect. I don't fucking know, dude. I would have to, whatever. So as you guys don't know, I guess I'll play this first so you guys can kind of get acquainted with it. To the people who aren't acquainted with it, this is for you. To the people who are, then just gonna have to rewatch it.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. With me up here is Los Angeles Police Department Chief Jim McDonald. Also at this podium on the DA's side are the Assistant District Attorney Maria Ramirez, who oversees our special operations. We have John McKinney, who is our Director of Specialized Prosecutions. The Assistant Head Deputy District Attorney is Habib Balian of the Major Crimes Division. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman of the Major Crimes Division will be the lead prosecutor on this case. From the Los Angeles Police Department, we also have Captain Scott Williams, who's the commanding officer of LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division, the Chief of Detectives, Alan Hamilton, the Director of Specialized Prosecutions, Mike Rimkunis, and the LAPD detectives on this case, Josh Byers and Corey Farrell. Today, I am announcing the charges against David Anthony Burke, the musician known as David, spelled D4vd, in connection with the brutal and horrific murder of Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time. These charges include the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring. That is first-degree murder with special circumstances. The special circumstances being lying in wait, committing this crime for financial gain, or murdering a witness in an investigation.
I'm not gonna lie, Skippy, you kind of, you completely just swept that debate, bro. Good job. Some of these people, I'm telling you.
These special circumstances carry with it, along with the first-degree murder charge, a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. The determination on whether or not the district attorney's office will seek the death penalty will be made at a later time. Before I get into the actual charges, and there are additional charges against Mr. Burke, including continuous sexual acts, lewd and lascivious sexual acts with an individual under 14 years old, and mutilating a human remains of a body. Before I get into the description of these charges and their seriousness, I want to look at this as a parent. I am a parent of 3 children, and a parent's nightmare is a situation where your daughter goes out one night and never comes back. As we will show in a court of law, and what I also want to make sure about that the understanding of these charges is clear, is my description of these charges is not evidence that we are going to present in court. These charges, in fact, will not be evidence in the court. Evidence will be the witness testimony, the documents, and different types of admissible testimony that we will admit into court in the prosecution, and if it leads to the eventual trial of Mr. Burke, to convince a jury of 12 people beyond a reasonable doubt that each and every one of these charges is true, as well as the special allegations and circumstances that have been alleged. Now, back to this being a parent's nightmare. On April 23rd, 2025, as been alleged by the complaint.
Okay, so what I'm going to say about this David situation is this is a perfect example of money and fame being able to help you get away with basically what he was doing. You know, there's pictures of him paying Celeste's friends to not tell anybody that he was in a relationship with her. I don't even remember what age he was. He's definitely his younger 20s. But he's paying them off, and apparently the rumor is that Celeste allegedly was going to tell him the situation and expose it. And there was a sharp object used. That's basically the breakdown that I was given on Law and Crime this morning, which we will go over.
A 14-year-old at that time went to Mr. Burke's house in the Hollywood Hills. She was never heard from again. On September 8th, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, Miss Celeste's remains, her dismembered and decomposed remains, were found in 2 bags inside of a front trunk of a car registered to Mr. Burke. Thereafter began an investigation. The investigation was to determine who killed, who murdered Celeste months and months before. That investigation was carried out in unison and in partnership between the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division and the District Attorney's Office.
Yeah, Skippy, he streamed with her on stream, and there's this clip of, let me show you. There's this clip of him and her on stream, and she even brings up, what's crazy about this is, okay, yeah, he was with a minor or whatever, right? He was with Celeste when she was young. But the crazy part about it is going on stream with her or taking pictures with her and posting them. Like, to me, that is so, you're trying to just, it's so blatant and stupid, right? And then, like, he was worried about her exposing it, allegedly. Like, what are you talking about? You already did a stream with her, bro. So apparently that's what it is. I don't know. Google, okay, sorry guys. Google Chrome is just acting a fool. So I'll bring it up on the other thing here. Anyway, but she even brought up on the stream, like, what's controversial, dating a kid or whatever. So this is the video right here, guys. Sorry, you know how Twitter is. I got to black out my screen. So this is her, like, with this big hoodie up and whatever. And this is him, obviously. Like, no shit, right? I'm stupid. But anyway, I shouldn't have smoked that. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Pumpkin abandoned us. It's sad. We're supposed to be loyal around here, guys. Thank you, Skippy, for being loyal. And Stacy, thank you guys so much. But, yeah, so anyway, I mean, how could you be with her on stream, bro? And not only that, but people already know about it. He's already paying people off. He's giving people money not to say nothing. It's like, and then you're going on stream with her, like, and apparently he was into true crime docuseries and shit. And he was like fantasizing, this all alleged, that he, you know, he was fantasizing about the perfect murder and how he could get away with it, right?
That's controversial.
It's controversial of kids.
See? And his face right here after she said it was like, whoa. Let's bring it back here.
I media trained you.
I media trained you, he said. This is all on camera. I media trained you. Here, is it all the way up for you guys? Yeah. All right. Yeah, dude, this is just wild. Yeah, this is David right here. And he literally just said, I media trained you.
I media trained you.
No, you didn't.
That's controversial.
It's controversial of kids.
Dude, that is just wild, bro. Look at his face. It's like it's over, bro. And what even led to this conversation? This is a now deleted stream, but I want to see what led to the conversation. I want to see the whole stream. Someone's got to get it, bro. And apparently she was doing substances with him, allegedly.
Really good.
Okay,
It's been a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Oh my! Delete everything. Delete everything. Everything goes.
Jeez. And towards the end, she's all close to him. See, it's obviously her.
I media.
Especially when you see her here, like she's.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. Oh, mwah. It's been a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Oh my! Delete everything. Delete everything.
But yeah, so that's where that's at. Yeah, I know they're talking about R word. I'm just saying what led to it. Like, what led to that conversation? It's wild. Like, what kind of conversation are you guys having where you're talking about R-wording kids?
At every point in the investigation to the arrest.
I know,
and
dude. Pumpkin's like the mom who said she was going out to get cigarettes and never came back.
Filing of charges. The LAPD and the district attorney's office have worked in lockstep. There's been no disagreements amongst these entities in deciding how to proceed with this case, ultimately leading to these charges today. So what you have as well with these charges is that, again, there are 3 sets of charges that have been brought. The first-degree murder with special circumstances, and again, those special circumstances are lying in wait. That Celeste went to Mr. Burke's home on the night of April 23rd, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, at his invitation, and again, was not heard from again. The second is a special circumstance being that this murder was committed for financial gain. As the evidence will show in court, the financial gain was for Mr. Burke to maintain his very lucrative musical career that Celeste was threatening on that particular night. The third charge, in addition to lying in wait and for financial gain, is murdering a witness to an investigation. In this particular case, as the evidence will come out in court, the witness to the investigation was Celeste. And the investigation was into the lewd and lascivious sexual acts committed by Mr. Burke that is the subject of count 2 of this complaint, with Celeste while she was under 14 years old. I had the chance to meet with some of the family members of Celeste, and their grief is incalculable as to what happened to their daughter. What they have demanded, what we have assured them that the district attorney's office working with LAPD would give them is the proof beyond a reasonable doubt on who killed their daughter, on how their daughter was killed, when their daughter was killed, and bring that killer to justice. That killer that we have now charged is David Anthony Burke.
Damn, he isn't that kind of crazy? How he's just like that killer? I mean, he's innocent till proven guilty, right? Not sticking up for the guy, like not sticking up for him, but it's just like, damn, that was some powerful words, right? All right, let's get into this, y'all. This is the video I was talking about. I want to get in this one next, dude. He just, man, he looked like he's on some weird shit, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date.
David was in court. The criminal complaint, including the complex murder charge, has been made public, and I interviewed the Los Angeles County District Attorney about what is going on right now. Lot to get into with the latest in the murder case of David, the man accused of brutally killing a 14-year-old girl. We want to break down the statements, what to expect from an upcoming hearing, whether this is a strong case, what the evidence may be. Is there a tension between the LAPD and the DA on charging David? Lot to get into. We're going to start right.
A man who paints his nails is not to be trusted, unless it's a man who lets their daughters do it to him, or like he's a good dad. But a man that just blatantly paints his nails, get the fuck out of here.
Now, welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. By the way, if you're into content creation, if you're putting things out on social media, have you ever wondered how we're able to share so many of these clips from all of these cases, all of these stories so quickly as they're all unfolding? Here's a secret. Just because there was the criminal complaint, we have his first court appearance, I have my interview with the Los Angeles County District Attorney regarding the timing of these charges, because there was a theory that the LAPD and the DA's office, maybe they weren't on the same page. We have a statement from David's family. So much to get into. And I also want to bounce this off of my guests later on in the show to make sense of what may be happening behind the scenes, okay? Now, this piggybacks off of what we talked about yesterday when the 21-year-old singer, the romantic homicide singer, was officially charged by the LADA in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose decomposed, dismembered body was found in the trunk of a Tesla reportedly registered to David back on September 8th, 2025. Now, to be clear, before I even get into the criminal complaint, David is innocent until proven guilty, okay? These are merely allegations, okay? They haven't been proven in a court of law. Just want to make that clear. Now, I'll tell you what, instead of going to the presser from yesterday that was held by the LADA, because we played all of that in our prior episode from yesterday, what we didn't have yesterday when we did that episode, but we have right now, is the official criminal complaint. It was filed, it has been released, we have our hands on it. So let me read it to you. On or about April 23rd, 2025, in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of murder was committed by David Anthony Burke, who did unlawfully and with malice aforethought murder Celeste, a human being. So you're talking about a premeditation, you're talking about an intent to kill. It is further alleged that the murder of Celeste was intentional and was carried out by the defendant, David Anthony Burke, for financial gain. It is further alleged that Celeste was a witness to a crime and was intentionally killed because of that fact. It is further alleged that the murder of Celeste was committed by David Anthony Burke and that the defendant intentionally killed the victim by means of lying in wait. It is further alleged that in the commission and attempted commission of the above offense, David Anthony Burke personally used a deadly and dangerous weapon, sharp instrument. By the way, what you're seeing here are special circumstances allegations that could enhance the penalty. So you're talking life in prison, you're talking potential death penalty, even though there's a moratorium on executions in California. So originally, when you had a murder charge, it would be, 25 to life with the possibility of parole. If the jury sides or believes that these special circumstances occurred beyond a reasonable doubt, then you're talking about that enhancement. You're talking about life in prison without the possibility of parole, or again, even the death penalty. And look, we knew that he was being investigated for murder. We didn't know these particular theories, right? The main theory here that was revealed by prosecutors was that Burke allegedly invited Celeste to his house, at which point he was lying in wait to murder her, to kill her, because she was allegedly going to report or expose her alleged sexual relationship with David in some way, that is a crime because she was a minor. So again,
how are you just taking pictures with this girl, bro? Like, that's what my question is. Like, if you... I don't even know how old he was at the time, dude. I don't really give a fuck. How are you taking pictures with this girl to post and doing streams with her, bro? When you're committing statutory R-word, you know? I mean, holy crap, bro. These people are dumb lately that you see on the news with these court hearings. These people are stupid.
And the circumstances of that are not entirely clear. I don't know how they're going to prove that, but that seems to be their main theory, which brings me to the next charge. On or between September 7th, 2023 and September 7th, 2024 in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of continuous sexual abuse in violation of Penal Code Section 288.5, a felony was committed by David Anthony Burke, who did unlawfully engage in 3 and more acts of substantial sexual conduct and 3 or more lewd and lascivious acts with Celeste, a child under the age of 14 years, while the defendant resided with and had recurring access to the child. So not just one alleged occasion.
Yeah, because remember, allegedly, there's a picture of him apparently breaking off bread with her friends. Because they knew about it, and he was apparently paying off people to not say anything. So, I don't know.
But multiple pattern here. Again, how they'll be able to prove that, maybe text, witness testimony, videos, I don't know, photographs. It will be interesting. On or about May 5th, 2025, in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of unlawful mutilation of human remains was committed by David Anthony Burke, who did willfully and unlawfully mutilate remains known to be human, specifically the remains of Celeste. Now, you're going to see this more from court in a minute, but David's legal team went on the defensive, okay? They issued the following statement. The actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did...
I know this is going to sound dark, but I'm trying to see those crime scene photos, bro. Like... You've seen the Tesla, but I'm trying to see, like, where do they have a picture of the weapon? I want to see the crime scene pictures of where they dumped it. Like, all of it, bro. Because this is like the most brazen fucking crime I've ever seen in my life.
Not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. Such specific language there. Now, in a separate statement on Monday, a lawyer for Mr. Burke's family, Kent Schaefer, said the Burkes are not surprised but are terribly disappointed that the district attorney chose to charge David. Nevertheless, they support and stand by him 100%. Patrick Steinfeld, a lawyer apparently for the Rivas Hernandez family, said in a statement that family members were, quote, committed to ensuring that Celeste's voice is heard, and added that upon learning of David's arrest, her father, Jesus Rivas, said, "Thank God, justice for Celeste." And then we go to what happened later on in the day yesterday. David's arraignment, okay, where the defense requested an immediate preliminary hearing. I'm going to explain this afterwards, but take a look.
Counsel, on behalf of your client, do you waive formal reading of the complaint, advisement of rights, including armed forces and veterans' rights, enter a plea of not guilty, denying any and all special allegations, enhancements, and priors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're requesting a preliminary hearing within the period?
Yes, Your Honor. From the media reports, apparently there have been 4 months of secret grand jury proceedings. We believe that Mr. Burke is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date on the.
So the reason why they're asking for a preliminary hearing is so both sides can be heard. It's more, you know, it's more non-biased in a way, but because if they go in front of the grand jury, that's private. There's no, you know what I mean? It's more biased towards indicting or doing whatever the hell they do.
10th date, Your Honor. We believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did
100%.
not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death. And we would like to be able to have the evidence come into the light of day at the earliest opportunity in order to establish that. We're asking for April 23rd as a 3 of 10, Your Honor.
So maintaining his innocence, saying he didn't murder her, not the cause of her death. Again, find that interesting because I do wonder, what are you saying here? That there's going to be a battle of experts? It's not entirely clear what caused her death. Are you going to be pointing the finger at someone else? Goes to the idea of the preliminary hearing. So as opposed to a grand jury, which is a secret proceeding, it's more one-sided. You have jurors, you just need a majority to determine there's probable cause to indict. Here you go to a court. A court, you present the evidence by the prosecution to suggest there's probable cause for this case to move forward. The defense has an opportunity to fight back, though, at this hearing. And it's interesting that they're asking for this immediate. They want to put the pressure, it seems, on the prosecution. So again, not the typical grand jury route. I want you to keep that in mind because, again, I interviewed LADA, Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman, who filed these charges. You'll see what he had to say in a minute. But from there, you get a back and forth in court yesterday on discovery, you know, the evidence in the case, a back and forth on the coroner's report, because as we know, the ME's findings have been sealed. But as you're about to see, maybe not for long.
We have been given almost no discovery thus far. We've received a 3-page follow-up report, no autopsy report, and a copy of the complaint. And we would ask the people respectfully to produce discovery at the earliest opportunity. Your Honor,
Yeah, also in California, though, he would be probably unalived in prison. But their politics in California, yeah.
As indicated to counsel, there's approximately 40 terabytes of discovery in this case. Moreover, in order to obtain the transcripts from a grand jury investigation, counsel has to file a motion. She knows the way the system works. I'm not able to gather those. They have to be provided after the court orders them released because it was an investigation. Second of all, if counsel plans on going to a preliminary hearing within the 10 days, it is unlikely that there will be very much discovery provided within that period, given the voluminous nature and how long it's going to take to copy onto drives. In addition to that, the coroner's report was sealed in this case in order to prevent it from hampering truthful testimony from witnesses that testified at the grand jury. So an order will also have to be obtained in order to get the coroner's department, which is now the medical examiner's department, to release those materials.
Your Honor, it's surprising news given the district attorney's office held a press conference this morning where they discussed the cause of death, apparently under seal and not released.
They are going at it right now. David's attorneys are like, we didn't get nothing, and the prosecutor's trying to say that we didn't know it, but then she's like, it's funny, you guys had a press conference. Yep. It's going to be a slimy ass case, guys.
By the coroner's office, as did the robbery homicide unit to the press. So we would again reiterate, we believe that Mr. Burke is entitled to discovery. We have served the people with notice. They have 15 days to produce discovery in this case. We would ask that they do that in conscientious earnestness and as quickly as possible.
I'd ask the court to make an order today. We'll take a copy of the minute order ordering the Department of Medical Examiner to release their coroner's report.
Two worlds. I think it's because California, and Stacey can correct me if I'm wrong, but California is still on like that COVID shit, bro. Like they still have protocols there for COVID.
Report in this case.
Thank you.
The court will order that the medical examiner release the report in this case.
So it appears that that medical examiner report is going to be released. And when that autopsy report comes out, that will hopefully fill in a lot of the blanks in terms of cause of death, what authorities believed happened to Celeste, the potential use or the alleged use of this sharp instrument. And as Hochman indicated in his press conference yesterday, he said the coroner has come up with a conclusion. Speaking of the LADA, I
Have a good
spoke
day, Darla.
with him,
Thank you
Nathan
for being
Hochman,
in here. God
on my
bless
News
you.
Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, last night. And among other things, I asked him about why David wasn't charged on Friday when he was arrested, when apparently there were these grand jury proceedings that were underway, whether there was any tension between the LAPD and the DA. Like maybe something happened in the grand jury proceedings, something was a holdup, and they couldn't get back an indictment, and the LAPD arrested David, put pressure on the DA's office to charge. Here was his response.
There's an investigative grand jury that hears testimony, can receive documents through subpoenas, and then there's an indictment grand jury. While we can't comment yet until the grand jury transcripts are unsealed by a court, I can't even confirm that a grand jury has occurred. There have been media reports that certain individuals, both cooperative witnesses and uncooperative witnesses, went in front of the grand jury.
So there was this report that perhaps you weren't on the same page when it came to charging David. Your response?
That's completely unfounded. We have been on the same page working in lockstep with the LAPD robbery homicide since they picked up this case in September of 2025.
And basically made the argument that preliminary hearings are common here, again, that they're lockstep, on the same page. But obviously I'm made of questions here. I really want to know where this is going to go. What are we reading behind the lines? What is the strength of the case? What is the strength of the evidence? I want to bring on friend of the show, friend of mine, trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. Rich, always good to see you. Thanks for taking the time. There's so much to break down here. First of all, the charges. We anticipated that there was going to be a murder charge, right? What we didn't anticipate, or at least I'll speak for myself, multiple theories here, right? Multiple special allegations, lying in wait, witness, financial gain. I didn't see that. And also the sex crimes charges, right? I mean, that was another big one where there had been this thought, if you want to charge David, if you want to go after him, is there not evidence that he was allegedly involved in a sexual relationship with a minor? You could have arrested him earlier on and then figured out the homicide charges. So I'm made of questions here. First, let me ask you, the murder charge and the way that they're charging it, it seems like they're going different paths towards a potential conviction.
Yeah, well, they have three different, you alluded to it, they have three different special circumstances. They have the theory that, lying in wait, under the theory that he, I guess, was waiting for her, that he did it for financial benefit, and that he did it because she was a witness to the crimes, which takes you back to the sex crime part of it. She was the key witness to those. And those are all special circumstances that get you up to murder one and even potentially make it a death penalty eligible case.
Yeah, so what they're saying is that she was going to tell. She's the witness to what other crimes was he doing, unless he was sleeping with other underage kids, but I mean, no other way to put it.
How do they prove that? I interviewed Nathan Hochman. He wouldn't reveal too much about that. Obviously, it's an ongoing case. But how are they going to prove that he specifically was lying in wait, that he lured her to the house, that he was concerned about his career, about her exposing him or allegedly exposing him?
So I don't know sitting here today how they're going to prove any of it, except that obviously they can prove that she's dead and that her body was dismembered, right? Those are the only things, and where the body was found. Those are the facts that we know. I imagine through witnesses they can establish her relationship with David, so can probably prove that. But how do they prove without witnesses that it was a sexual relationship? How do they prove without witnesses that he is the killer? I think the theory is he lured her in, murdered her, and dismembered her. How are they going to prove that he did that as opposed to somebody in his ambit or somebody else?
A lot of it has been, she went to the house, she was never seen again. And that is like what they really focused on. Obviously, they didn't get into more details, but I guess that piece of circumstantial evidence, right? They didn't say there was a smoking gun. They said it was the totality of the evidence. They can show she showed up to the house and was never seen again, and it was a property that was in, I don't think it was necessarily one that he owned, but or that was rented for him, or he was staying at. I guess they will establish that he was the only one in the house, or
maybe there's nothing wrong with circumstantial evidence. There's lots of these cases are built on circumstantial evidence. So the circumstantial evidence is her body was found in his car, and it was dismembered. So that is circumstantial evidence. She had a relationship with him. I guess there's evidence that she went to the house, but I don't think we know all the evidence they have because we haven't had this preliminary hearing yet. We haven't seen.
Like I said, when we get these court proceedings streamed, it is going to be insane. Like seeing all the different evidence and stuff.
We're going to find out more about the evidence and the things I'm looking for. What is the scientific evidence, right? They examined her body. What did they find? Did they find his DNA? And what is the witness testimony that they have? Because there's been references to cooperating and non-cooperating witnesses. Who exactly is going to say what? I would imagine that's been a lot of the reason these proceedings have been delayed and pretty secretive.
By the way, so you heard me have the back and forth with Nathan Hochman last night, and he said, look, LAPD, DA's office, we've been in lockstep. That, you know, in LA, there's an investigative grand jury that just hears witnesses and maybe locks in testimony, right? And there's a difference between a grand jury that indicts. And there's still people who will look at this and say something's maybe not adding up, right? I mean, even Nathan Hochman said you have cooperating, non-cooperating witnesses. But I guess the question would be, does it make sense to you that he was arrested and then charged versus indicted through a grand jury, arrested, but now they have to go to a preliminary hearing in front of a judge, which I do wonder, is it easier to move forward in a case in a preliminary hearing versus a grand jury? I guess there's a bunch of questions there as we think about it.
It could make sense to me. You know, again, there's so much here that we don't know about how they got to this point, and you have to choose the strategy if you're a prosecutor. In theory, it's easier to go to a grand jury because it's completely one-sided, and grand juries usually sign on to what the prosecutors want. That's just a fact of life. So you would think, in theory, it would be easier to go to the grand jury, but you have to be able to present your evidence, and I don't know if there were challenges to presenting the evidence. I don't know if there was a feeling at some point that we just have to move forward and get him arrested and get him off the street. We can't wait anymore to finish this grand jury process. We don't have all the witnesses yet. I don't know what the holdup was. So I'm not going to assess the strategy when I don't have complete information. Sometimes it proceeds this way, and they go to a preliminary hearing, and we will find out then more than we know now about what the evidence is.
And I mean, he made it seem LAPD, DA's office, we're in lockstep. I asked him, I said, you know, there is a theory here that LAPD made the arrest, put the pressure on your office to charge because there was some hang up in the grand jury, and he goes, it's unfounded. I interviewed Mark Garagos afterwards, and he seemed to disagree. You know, one of the things I thought was interesting, and I mentioned this to Hochman last night, was like, when there was an arrest, your office came out and said, we are aware of the arrest, right? That doesn't necessarily, like, we're in this together, we knew about it. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I have a little bit of suspicion there, too. The best case would be that they are in lockstep, that they are working together, they are getting along. I suppose pretending to work together is second best. At least they're not actively being hostile with each other. But I don't know what the truth is.
If there was a hang-up in the grand jury, what is it? If I'm reading between the lines and he says uncooperative witnesses, why would you need them? Why would you need them? Let's say even you had, isn't there maybe...
Yeah, we need the firing squad back.
Digital evidence, the forensic evidence enough to establish these potential charges, the probable cause for these charges? Even if you had uncooperative witnesses, what role would they play?
I would think that you had enough evidence to get an indictment in the grand jury. Now, I'm just going to wildly speculate here. Suppose non-cooperating witness means we put on a witness in front of the grand jury and they didn't say what we thought they were going to say. And it mucked up our whole presentation because now some witness pointed the finger at somebody else or surprised us or just didn't tell the story we thought they were going to tell. And so now we're left with this grand jury proceeding. We need to present more evidence. We need to hold the grand jury over. We're not totally sure we're going to get an indictment, so we're just going to do it this other way.
This went into another question that I had with him. If the allegations are true, it may be hard for people to believe David allegedly did this all on his own. Singer who allegedly kills this
Well, and he had people staying at his house. I mean, when he was on tour, he would let people use his vehicles, you know? I mean, he was getting money, bro. He was getting that money because he was making those songs that it was trending on TikTok, people were using them, it was trending everywhere. And when songs like that start trending, you start getting downloads. Once you start getting downloads, your numbers go up. You're making money, you're getting good offers from labels, or if you're independent, you're just making a lot of money, like Russ. And yeah, I mean, there's so many ways he could go with it. It's going to be very interesting.
18-year-old girl dismembers her, stuffs her into the trunk of his car in bags. It's a lot for one person to theoretically do, and yet he's the only one charged, which begs the question, are there cooperating witnesses? And you're going to make deals with somebody who potentially was involved in this?
So, well, you ask a good question, and you said a lot of things about David, and the thing you didn't say is he's very young.
Yeah,
He's 21 years old.
yeah.
So this 21-year-old kid, and I'm sorry, 21 is still a kid, right?
Well, I will tell you, by the way, I get a lot of heat online. People say, don't call him a kid. He's a man.
He is legally a man. He'll be tried as an adult, but in terms of decision...
Yeah, dude, I hate when people say, like, oh, once you're 18, you're a man. Like, yeah, you're a legal adult, but, like, dude, in the spectrum of life, 20, 22, 23, you're still young, dude, Once you start getting your mid-20s, late 20s, you start changing and growing up a bit more, but, you're still in your young phase. When you just because you hit 18 doesn't mean it just goes away.
Making, I think if you talk to medical people, they will tell you your brain is not fully formed until you're like 26 years old. But put that aside. It is hard to imagine him on his own concocting the plan, committing the murder, doing the dismembering, going out and getting body bags, putting them in the trunk of his car entirely on his own. That does seem to me implausible. It seems to me more likely that there was somebody else involved on one or more parts of that. And that could be what this investigation has been having to deal with.
Depending on how much time he had, I'm sorry. This is going to make me sound crazy, but it would not be that hard. The hardest part would probably be the cleanup, getting the forensic evidence out of there and all that other stuff. But, I mean, dude, she didn't look like she was that big. I mean, that's, 120 pounds total?
The press conference, when I listened to
And that makes me sound crazy, but I'm just saying, like, they're acting like he couldn't have done stuff. Dude, it took them 6 months to even find the body. You don't know what he did in that time, So to say it's just implausible is kind of stupid.
Last night, it seems to me they are not completely closing the door on charging somebody else. And if you're asking me what would change, whether or not that person decides to cooperate. If they decide to no longer cooperate, maybe they would be charged. I might be 100% wrong, but is that what's maybe going on?
That sounds totally plausible. The idea in these kind of scenarios that you have people who are deciding if they want to be witnesses or defendants. And remember, if there are people who are involved, they don't want to testify adverse to him. If they're friends of his, they don't want to testify adverse to him. There's different kinds of help, right? There could be people who helped plan it. There could be people who helped do it. There could be what we call accessories after the fact. There could just be people who know about it or think they know about it. And so if you're a prosecutor, your pitch to a lot of those people is, do you want to be a witness or do you want to be a defendant?
Yeah.
And it depends. If they think that he is the one who is really responsible for this horrible, violent act, then they will make deals with others in order to pin the responsibility on him.
What about this idea? I thought it was very interesting where the defense says that not only did David not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, he's not the cause of her death. That's very specific. It makes me wonder, is there a debate about how she died? Is there a debate about what caused her death? And, are we talking, there might be a battle of medical experts to determine. I mean, we don't, again, at the time of this recording, we don't even have the autopsy report. We don't know the cause of.
Yeah, they're saying that, well, it's going to be very hard for the coroner to decide what the cause of death was anyway, because the body was so decomposed and stuff. But they're saying that she could have OD'd on a substance too.
Death, but am I wrong in thinking that's maybe where they're going? And I don't think they have that.
That is what I thought when I heard that language too. He is not the cause of her death. Are they going to say the death was accidental, but some people, one or more people, tried to get rid of the body, or are they going to say somebody else did it? And then
if the death was accidental, why didn't she just call the cops?
More people try to get rid of the body. Are they going to say David, at the end of the day, they're going to say David didn't do it, had no connection, had no knowledge of it. But when you make a more limited statement like he was not the cause of the death, that leads you to suspect it's a more nuanced defense.
Yeah, in court they indicate they didn't have the autopsy report. That's why the court said we're going to basically release it. So how can they make a statement like that unless he told them something?
Yeah, well, right. So they would have to have information about how it was she did die, which means he is involved at some level. And then the question would be, even if you're not responsible for the death per se, there are other crimes here that appear to have been committed. I mean, starting with the sex crimes, because it sounds like this legal adult, as you say, was having a relationship with a 13-year-old, which is not legal.
And look, the state of her body, the decomposition, the dismemberment, I do wonder if that's going to complicate cause of death. I remember in the press conference, he indicated, Nathan Hochman indicated that the coroner, the medical examiner.
Yeah, I mean, with how this all is, bro, I can see him getting off with, like, the slap on the wrist. Like, it's either there's going to be super damning evidence when we watch these proceedings, or there's going to be, yeah, there's going to be shit that's like, well, the jury's not going to, yeah. Come on, why the fuck is Safari acting up, fool?
Did come up with a conclusion as to cause of death. But if they're debating it, the defense, I wonder if there's room.
Yeah. I think that defense would point, the defense is going to put the prosecution to the test of proving cause of death, and then of tying that cause of death to this defendant. That's going to be the difficult aspect. And the prosecution's going to try to help that with this motive stuff, right? She was going to be a threat to his future impending stardom, and she was a witness to things that were criminal acts, and therefore he wanted her out of the way. That's why they're going to lean into motive in the prosecution of this case. You don't even have to prove motive generally to get a murder conviction, but it helps.
Let's just take a step back. We talk so much about this preliminary hearing. Some people might be like, well, what are you talking about? What is a preliminary hearing? So if you can explain what a preliminary hearing is and why the defense would want it immediately. Like they want a preliminary hearing as soon as possible.
Yeah, the defense, so that is a key strategy decision that defendants always have to make. Sometimes they waive a preliminary hearing because they don't want the evidence presented publicly, and they know what the evidence is and they don't want to see it right away. Sometimes they insist on a preliminary hearing. It is an in-court presentation of the evidence of the probable cause for these charges. It's not a full trial on the merits, but it's a presentation by the prosecution of the evidence they have. And if your strategy includes a possible argument that they didn't even have enough evidence to charge this, then you want to have the preliminary hearing right away and put the prosecution to the test. Show us what you have. And if you suspect that your prosecutors don't really have their heart in this prosecution, that the police are pushing them, which is one of the theories we went over, then maybe that makes you want to put him to the test. Make him go to court. Make him put this evidence on. We want to know exactly what they have, exactly what they're saying, and we want to be able to challenge it right now.
How much of the evidence from the prosecution is usually presented in a preliminary hearing versus a trial down the road?
A lot of it. I mean, there's not much reason.
And cases develop and investigations develop.
Investigations develop. There's not, I mean, for example, if you had scientific evidence, which you should have by the time you get to a preliminary hearing, there'd be no reason not to present that. If you have basic evidence about their relationship and your theory of the case, you would present that.
And would we know who potential cooperating witnesses are?
Maybe.
Because I could see them being like, oh, there's no more witnesses. They decided not to testify. And so he takes it to court and they just say that some bullshit excuse. And they're like, well, we can't prove nothing because I guarantee you the autopsy report's going to come back that the body was so badly decomposed, being in that hot trunk for months, that there's no real evidence to persuade anyone to think that there could have been, it could link him to anything. I could just see that happening, and then it'd be like, well, there's no murder weapon, there's no, I wonder if there's video footage, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting.
Maybe.
And
right, even when you hear what the state attorney said about what he said the evidence that they're talking about is not what they're going to talk about in court, and the court is going to be a bunch of testimony and this and that. Well, what if those people decide to pull a Woody and not testify? You know?
Because that's another issue as to how quiet they're trying to keep that. They got to disclose it to him at some point, so.
Yeah. Okay, look, this is a very big development. There's things that are rapidly happening almost every day now. At the time of this recording, we're still waiting for the autopsy report to be released, and I asked Nathan Hochman about this last night, but I imagine that's going to fill in a lot of pieces of this puzzle. I mean, if he's talking about a sharp instrument, if they were talking about what the cause of death is, that autopsy report is going to say a lot. What would you be looking out for there?
Yeah, well, I want to see what it says is the cause of death, and is it conclusive? And does that support the theory of the case that this 21-year-old committed this crime, committed the murder, right? Well, we'll get to the other stuff, and then you have to figure out how are they proving he committed the dismemberment. That's a separate issue. But people want to know what the cause of death was and how certain they are on it. As you know, sometimes autopsy reports aren't certain, and that's a problem in this kind of prosecution.
Look, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to explore this and see where it goes. Because again, it's 7 months that people have been waiting for some sort of answer. And to be clear, David is innocent until proven guilty. His attorneys are saying that he didn't do this. So we will see what happens. We will see what happens when the preliminary hearing happens. Rich Schoenstein, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Always glad to come in. Good
of course,
to see you.
good seeing you. And that's all we have here right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you.
This is the next O.J. Simpson type deal here. Yeah, he's all over the place.
Hey everybody, I'm Ann Emerson and this is Criminally Obsessed. How did Celeste Rivas Hernandez wind up dead and dismembered in a rapper's Tesla? She was 14 years old, barely a teenager, and someone's child.
The substantial amount of time that passed between her death and the discovery meant that crucial evidence had degraded or disappeared.
There are videos of Celeste and the rapper David, and he recorded a song called Romantic Homicide. Here he is singing it on an episode of Verified.
In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it.
In the same episode, which was posted, by the way, back in 2022, 3 years before Celeste's body was discovered, he explains the meaning behind it.
It's not like the thought of her is gone by itself was something that she did. It was something that I decided to do, and I killed her in the back of my mind. It was really more of a figurative, I killed you.
There's even a video of him.
I'm not gonna lie, it does sound bad, but to people who can't understand like the word play he's doing, they're stupid.
Bloodied, putting a body into a car. You've got to wonder, is life imitating art?
As the evidence will show in court, the financial gain was for Mr. Burke to maintain his very lucrative musical career that Celeste was threatening on that particular night.
Celeste was last seen alive on April 23rd, 2025, going into David's Hollywood Hills home. Her body was found decomposing in the trunk of his Tesla last September.
Today, I am announcing the charges against David Anthony Burke, the musician known as David, spelled D4vd, in connection with the brutal and horrific murder of Celeste, a
weapon. We're not talking about a dagger, all right? And the assumption is it would be because you don't come across in forensics, you don't come across many double-edged weapons. They're generally single-edged weapons, and so they have a very specific pattern when you look at a stabbing event. I actually refer to it as the winking eye. So if you think about an eye and how our eyes are shaped, closer to the nose is kind of blunted, and then it comes out to a point, okay, on the on the periphery. So when you insert the knife, you see this pattern. It's very distinctive, even in a decomposing body. The other thing here is that you're going to have to try to understand the difference between antemortem injuries, stab wounds or slices, cuts, and postmortem injuries, which would go to dismemberment.
So antemortem is while they're still, that's before they die.
Before they die, or in the midst of dying, perimortem. Okay. And then you have the dismemberment issues, which are going to look nothing like at all, because there's not going to be any indwelling hemorrhage. And I know people are thinking, well, she's decomposed. That's one of the reasons we do autopsies. We take tissue samples, and even with decomposing tissue, we can go into certain areas and we can actually appreciate if there's indwelling hemorrhage and like the margins of a stab wound, and that can still be appreciated to a certain degree. All right, and it's going to be tough. And all of this is tough because of decomposition. And I think personally that this is one of the reasons, one of many probably, but one of the reasons it's taken quite some time for a lot of this data to come out.
Okay. And you're also hearing more about the gruesome nature of the maggots, the bugs that were on or near this body of Celeste. What does that tell you?
Okay, so that data actually came out in a leak, and that was some weeks back. However, this is why this is important, I think, because first off, the place where she is found, which is inside of this vehicle, is not where the dismemberment took place. All right.
Well, obviously.
I would be very surprised. All right.
Yeah, he's just standing there in his Tesla trunk, chopping her up. That'd be insane. And
we don't know how her remains migrated into the so-called frunk of the Tesla. My suspicion is that she was somewhere else on that property when she was killed and then dismembered. Now, if she was not placed into the Tesla as a storage location immediately, that means that her body lay there until they could determine, the assailant or assailants, determine what they could do, all right? Or what are you going to do? Because now you're faced with human remains. How do you get rid of them? We know from this document that had been released earlier that there was insect activity. So going back, I'm wondering if there's not evidence of insect activity around the house. And this is something that a civilian that's not involved in forensics is not going to be aware of. So when flies lay eggs, those eggs mature, right? They turn into maggots. Well, when maggots begin to go through their cycle, which is generally about 16 to 32 days, they shed their husk, and they just look kind of translucent, little husk on the ground. They're crunchy. They're tiny. You might not think anything of it. For us, that's valuable information because it's generational, and these generations keep, going on and on and on. And you can actually track that. You can track it through development. How long was a human remain there, and it's in a state of decomposition? How many cycles of flies have you gone through? So how I talked about that static time back on the 23rd? Well,
this guy's laying out a bunch of information that is pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
The maggots themselves, the insects themselves can actually...
I knew about the flies and the maggots, but he's pretty smart.
They act as markers as well. And how many cycles were in the trunk, because they noted the insect activity inside. I keep saying trunk, but frunk, I guess the parlance that they're using. How many cycles were in the frunk and how many were outside? Okay, was there any evidence? And even if you leave blood behind, that also attracts insects. So the devil is truly in the details, in this case, and how thoroughly did they get there and examine that location in the wake of the discovery of the body? Had he had sufficient amount of time to clean up? And that's going to be very, very important in this case. Some of the stuff has been speculative, but now we've kind of got concrete markers, don't we? We think about we've got a date, and now
my mom loved bones.
Authorities are using terms like line and weight. That means that they have specific information, and it obviously didn't come from Burke. All right, so that data is coming from somewhere else, I would think. Either that or either
like another witness,
person that witnessed, or they have specific timestamps relative to text messages. Because I would imagine there are, tons of text messages probably flying between these two.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a witness. If they have Celeste's last moments going into his apartment on or on a camera, then they also have David going in there, and they know, like, they can just track on, okay, well, David showed up. It was a half hour before Celeste got here. Bang, bang, boom.
More than likely, but at any rate, he lured her to the home. That's when we know that she vanishes. We don't see her after that date, and she doesn't pop up again on the radar again until she's found in that parking lot. Months and months later. But it's important for us forensically because now we have markers in time that we can kind of assess this and get an idea as to which way this is going.
Well, thank you very much. Those were very important points. But dang, it took a long time to get here, didn't it?
Hey, listen, if you really want a measure of time, and I'm talking about from a scientific standpoint, okay, think about when the last time it was that Celeste was actually seen alive. Okay. And there's been a lot of questions about this, correct? I mean, that's been the conundrum, if you will, from a scientific standpoint.
And why is that important as far as like when she was last seen?
I mean, it's very important in the sense that if her body is not in the condition that it's in when it's found, then we have to back up and reassess the timeline. Timeline goes to narrative, right? And also what the public and more importantly, what the investigators are seeing, does it match up? And from my side of the house, from the forensic side of the house, we take the evidence that we have, which are this precious child, may I emphasize here, remains found in the frunk of this Tesla vehicle in an impound yard. What was their status? And we begin to look at things like decompositional rates. We begin to look at things like injuries, how degraded they might be. Is it still appreciable based upon the length of time? And I got to tell you, now we kind of have benchmarks, right? Because what they are saying at this point in time, the last time she is known to be alive is when she walks into that residence on April the 20th, 2025. So that's kind of a static marker in time. And, in science,
so that was a year ago, 2 days ago. That's crazy.
We like to have the static markers because it's from within that construct we can begin to do specific measurements. And then she's not found. She's not found until well into September. If we are to believe what investigators, the police are stating right now, then she has essentially been decaying inside of this vehicle or maybe somewhere else. And she was placed in the vehicle after they could not handle her being in another location, say, for instance, in the house, if that's where this dismemberment event took place. And then they put her in the car and then moved her out to the road. I've been kind of going through my mind of all of these various scenarios because, listen, I can tell you this, working in New Orleans and Atlanta with the coroner and the medical examiner, respectively, one thing that people never get used to, and I know this is very ghastly, is the smell of decomposing flesh. And so you take someone that's certainly not used to being around that and faced with the possibility that, he allegedly did this, and it's a constant reminder, isn't it? And so you could see how she could be taken from one spot and then placed in another, and then the car moved out of the garage and put onto the road, and it's being moved about and that sort of thing. And now, there's more clarity here.
Could you imagine the thoughts in the back of your mind or the weight on your head of having done that to her and keeping her in your house, or like even driving her away in a Tesla and parking it somewhere? Like, how could you even, I mean, that's a lot of weight on your shoulders, dude.
I think.
We have, from these press conference that we've just heard from the district attorney's office from Hochman, that she was last seen alive on April 23rd, 2025, when she arrived, as you said, at David's home. And then you have this enormous amount of time where she may or may not have been in a picture, but then you leapfrog all the way to September 8th, which also just makes me absolutely heartsick, is because that was literally, I think, the day after she was discovered the day after her birthday, would have been 15 years old. Can you talk to me about what they found in the
Damn. And Charlie Kirk was killed 2 days later.
trunk, which is like the front trunk of the Tesla that had been, as you said, sort of moved around to these different places in LA, in the Hollywood Hills area.
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
It gets impounded right after a couple of days. They just throw it into the impound lot. They discover her body, and what's going on with this body? How do they find her body?
Well, most of the time with decomposing bodies, the first idea that you have something that is decomposing.
It's going to be interesting to see, too, what Tesla gives them for evidence, because Tesla records everything.
Whatever it is, any kind of organic substance is going to be smell. It will be giving off an odor. And in this particular case, that's what happened. One of the workers there, somebody went by that impounded Tesla, and they took note of it. And it was at that point in time that they summoned people there. They were able to open up the frunk, I'd never heard that term before until months ago when I first started covering this. The frunk, they make this ghastly discovery. So it's not just her body in the frunk, it's her body in multiple components. And one of the major components, and this is something I think that was leaked out as a result of some of the grand jury data that had come out, a few months ago, and we were shocked to hear this. The police actually used the term body bag. Or something similar to that, if I'm not mistaken.
A cadaver bag?
A cadaver bag specifically. And that's a term that is, we don't use in the industry. We don't say cadaver bag for the most part. We use the term body bag. Years ago, they used to be called disaster pouches. You hear body bag most of the time, but this is a cadaver bag, which, by the way, can be purchased. You can go on Amazon and find these things, and you can buy them, and you can buy them for any number of reasons. Halloween display, you can buy them actually for pets, and you can buy them for human size as well. And they do come in various sizes, and I just want people to understand that. And so it would have been easy for him to have acquired one of these, allegedly, if he is in fact responsible for this. But there were other items that were also found, at that dwelling. By the way, $20K per month in rent.
Right, his mansion.
Yeah, and we had a burn cage that was found there that had not been used, and that was kind of suspicious. There was an unused chainsaw.
I wanted to see what a burn cage looked like, so of course I Googled it right away. And they appear to be ventilated steel boxes, some with lids, some without, and they can cost anywhere from...
Yeah, they like incinerate things. Whew, excuse me, I'm gonna get off here soon, guys.
Couple $100 to over $1,000. A typical burn cage is about 35 inches or a little under 3 feet tall and 20 inches wide. But bigger versions can
you can make them like with bricks.
Get up to almost 4 feet tall and 2 feet wide.
I had an opportunity to talk with the private investigator that was working on behalf of the landowner. I said, let me ask you something. At this dwelling, if you're a customer, if you're a renter, are you expected to do your own maintenance around the house? Your own, is he going to go out and start, whittling on trees and taking out limbs? And he laughed, because and I know what the Hollywood Hills are, right? I mean, this is not the place where the people that are living in the home, I guess I could, but if you're renting, you're not going to go out and do your own lawn work.
No, and those burn cages they're not even legal, are they, in Los Angeles?
Yeah, they might not put you in jail for many things in Los Angeles nowadays. You start burning stuff, all you got to do is look at Malibu and the Palisades fire. You start burning stuff out there, you're going to get somebody's attention. And burn cages in and of themselves are used many times on rural properties, and you can burn stuff. It kind of self-ventilates. It maintains, because fire has a requirement of having an uninhibited flow of oxygen, right? And so it's got openings on it and this sort of thing. So to breathe, and you can render things down. That's what it comes down to, rendering. And that's very important. And there are people I know,
check his Amazon account.
These things on properties. It could be debris, the remains of vermin that they recover, that sort of thing. And so it would be nothing to take, say, human remains, and if you can place them into smaller, manageable pieces, for instance, you could render those down. These things burn really hot. I mean, I think I checked, and they will burn as hot as a crematory. So that the temps really get in. They're built to do this. Okay. So they can get up over 1,000 degrees in heat. But you're going to draw attention to yourself with that, particularly in LA.
Well, and so they were.
Well, unless you had a fenced in backyard. I mean,
hadn't been used from what.
I'm going to get off here in about 5 minutes.
This PI told you.
Yeah.
And I think I know who you're talking about, Stephen Fisher. Is that who it was?
Stephen. Yeah. Yep.
So he was the PI for the owner of the property that David was renting during this whole time period that we're talking about. Last sort of spring to summer time frame is from what I understand.
Yes,
so it wasn't
correct.
used though. The chainsaw and the burn cage were not used.
They were not used. No,
So we wouldn't see any potential DNA on that. But so it creates this whole scenario, right? Like what is going on? And then you find this body.
It's like you and I could go out and we can buy pretty much anything we want to. You know, this is legal.
Sure.
It's legal to purchase. All right. But it certainly when you're working at this from an investigative narrative, right? You're trying to put all of these pieces together to try to understand. And we're not even talking about court yet. All right. We're just talking about why in the world would somebody possess this that has no need of it? If you're looking to get rid of debris on the property, that's not your job. That's down the hall and to the left, right? That's somebody else that's going to be hired by the owner to do that. So it would make an investigator pause, right? Well, why would you need this? Are you about to get into gardening? Are you trying to dispose of something that you don't want anybody else to see? You know, those questions are going to pop up, and they should. They should in any legitimate investigator's
I want to see a picture of the burn cage right now. Right now.
And so that's very important. Can I go back to something, though, relative to the dates? And I think that it's essential. One of the things that came out in the press conference, and you need to check this wording very careful. You know, we talk about those dates, you know, if it was the 23rd of April, one of the things that that was stated in the press conference was that he, being David, all right, was laying in wait. Now,
lying in
that
wait.
that has a certain implication to it. You know, like he had foreknowledge, he had an understanding. When she comes back, you know, at that date, on that date in April, he's laying in wait for her. That goes to planning, right? That goes to an awareness that she could run contrary to any kind of plans he has for the future. And he has to have a way in order to not just end her life, but also get rid of her, because this is no easy undertaking for anybody. I cover a lot of cases on my podcast and on other platforms relative that involve dismemberments. If I could just tell you, you know, a couple of things that I see consistently that happen along this way is that most people that decide to do a dismemberment do not have the proper tools at hand. You know, there are a lot of people that do it, think they want to do it, and then they're going to grab whatever they have in the house in order to render down the body. And most of those things are not sufficient to the task. It's not like they work in a medical legal environment where it's a morgue and we have scalpels and knives and saws and all those sorts of things that we use when we're doing dissections. Okay. And suddenly you're left with these very rudimentary tools. Also, what do you do with these elements once you're in the midst of this? And most people get very, very frustrated. You have to have power. You have to have water most of the time, and you have to have, more importantly, you have to have privacy in order to do this. You're not going to go in the backyard. You're not going to go.
You know, I one of the narratives I can't keep getting out of my head either is, what if she was pregnant? What if she was pregnant and she's like, I got to tell my parents, and then it would have went from there, allegedly.
The front yard. You're not even going to go to the alleyways to do this. You have to have seclusion in order to facilitate this. So did this take place at that address in the Hollywood Hills, or did it take place somewhere else? Was her body transported somewhere else where her remains were essentially dismembered at another location and she was brought back here? I think that there's a lot more to learn here, but I got to tell you, the focus is kind of tightening at this point in time.
And so that you believe, like, these special circumstances that you're talking about, that they are leveling at David right now on top of the murder in the first degree. It's lying in wait, committing crime for financial gain, and murdering the witness in an investigation.
Yes.
Those, and that witness being Celeste Rivas Hernandez herself, as a young girl, as a minor that was in the middle of this. So lying in wait really does show that premeditation, but it doesn't tell us yet where the crime scene necessarily is. And we know where her body was found, but not necessarily where she died.
Yeah. And what does lying in wait mean? You know.
All right, we'll stop there. We'll continue tomorrow. I'm sure there's going to be more things that come out. I want to still make my video on it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's just crazy. At the end of the day, dude, he needs to go to jail. It's alleged he's innocent until proven guilty, but I mean, oh my God, dude. That girl was still a baby, bro. A baby. And he's just, I mean, yeah, it's just going to be, like I said, I'm really interested in seeing the court streams. I want to see the court proceedings really bad. So anyways, thank you guys for being here, man. I love you guys. Joe, appreciate you for being here. Skippy, Stacy, everybody else, man. Darla, I love you guys. Much love. See you tomorrow morning. Today I was a little late because I had to get some stuff from the pharmacy and whatnot, but I am back. So